Welcome to this Tuesday edition of the Hugh Hewitt Show. It's a serious opening. I've been thinking about this since the massacre at Bondi Beach on Saturday. That was December 13th. And I finally wrote down my thoughts last night. We're dealing with three distinct periods of time, from 9/11 to 10/7. Then I thought it was a war against Al-Qaeda and a war against its offshoots and ISIS, and a war just against jihadism and jihadists. Then, after 10/7, and that was stunning. I was on the air on 9/11, and I was stunned for months and didn't quite get over it. After 10/7, I was stunned for months again, because that was truly the vilest thing. I mean, seeing 3,000 Americans die was awful, but it was also remote to the extent that I didn't know anyone who was killed on the airplane. I knew Barbara a little bit, but no one well, and it was at a remove. Dwayne and I were broadcasting in Adam from California when the planes hit the towers, but 10/7 was just so awful and so immediate and so horrific that it changed my mind to radical Islam is everywhere. And it's not Al-Qaeda, and it's not ISIS, and it's not groups of hundreds of radicals in caves. It's thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of radicalized Islamists. And now, after Bondi Beach in Australia, I realize it's anti-Semitism is everywhere. And by everywhere, I mean, of course, Bondi Beach. 16 people killed at the beach at a Hanukkah tree lighting ceremony. And they would have killed more except for a couple of heroes. But then yesterday, in New York City, as I'm thinking about all this, a video pops up, and a couple of guys attack a couple of guys of Chabadniks. They're just standing on the subway. And I mean, anyone who's ever been in New York can recognize the Orthodox and the Chabadniks and the Hasidic, and they just start yelling anti-Semitic stuff. They're not provoked. It hasn't got anything to do with anything. It's everywhere. So I went back and I did my notes. Mein Kampf came out 101 years ago in 1925. That's Hitler's call to arms against the Jews. He takes another 8 years to get to power in Germany. After he's in power in 1933, it takes 5 years to Kristallnacht. That's when the real pogrom came to Germany. And Germany was as civilized as the United States was. All right, just as civilized. And then, after Kristallnacht, 1938, takes another 3 years to the killing operations. The Holocaust actually goes into killing mode, I believe, at Chelmno in December of 1941. And I think the same cycle is repeating itself. Anti-Semitism is the evil of the day right now. Now, Catholics at least, I think most Christians, but Catholics should and must understand it's mortal sin to hate Jews because they're Jews. It's mortal sin. St. John Paul II understood that, apologized to Jews for historic anti-Semitism in the church, made it clear that there was much to do. Benedict carried that out. Francis, not so much. But the first two, they made it very, very clear. You are morally sick if you hate Jews just because they're Jews. You need help as much as people who hate blacks just because they're black, or who hate women just because they're women, who hate white just because they're white. It's all identitarianism, but the worst of it is anti-Semitism. And I listened to the commentary podcast today, and Christine Rosen said she'd had too much coffee, but she didn't have too much coffee. She was just right. People have got to recognize that attacks on Jews are attacks on everyone. It's the old bird in the mind. It's the old happens to them, then it's going to happen to somebody else. But that's not the reason to oppose it, even if you feel completely secure. Even if you're going to be the open Gruppenführer come 30 years from now. It's just evil. It's a mortal sin. You'll burn in hell. And that's Catholic theology. So what do we do? Number one, recognize that, as Christine Rosen said, Jews attacks on Jews or attacks on everyone. Then we have to begin teaching in public and private schools and all sorts of schools from day one that anti-Semitism is evil. Now, I have a way to do this, by the way. Junior high on. Have them read by the great Herman Wouk, Winds of War and War and Remembrance. They're captivating. They'll absolutely read them. I had a non-reader in my family who read The Kite Runner because it was just a great story, well told. Well, this is the greatest story, World War II, and the run-up to World War II, and the heroism and the evil of World War II is the greatest story ever told. And those two books, widely available. Winds of War and War and Remembrance. You can teach that, spend the entire semester, learn more World War II history than that we will do out of a textbook. There are other ways, but that's an easy way to do it. Erin Jastrow is a tragic figure. Natalie Jastrow is a heroine. The war is in the background. Pug Henry is a hero. You'll go everywhere. You'll meet Stalin. You'll meet Churchill. You'll meet everybody. You'll get it all down. At the same time, you'll learn that Hitler was just a crazed man. Number two, every person in charge of any law enforcement branch has to get everyone together and say anti-Semitism is our priority number one. Right? Harvard's letter to me yesterday, I made fun of it on the show yesterday, said we're going to stamp out anti-Semitism and anti-Arab prejudice. There is no anti-Arab prejudice at Harvard. That's idiocy. Let's stay focused on the fact it's Jew hatred. I'm not Jewish. I'm Catholic. Not Jewish. Nope. Been to Israel twice. Grand total like 5 days. Not Jewish. It is priority number one, and to in any way dilute it is to participate in turning away from the evil. Right? So dilute your attention to it, you're turning away from the evil. Number three, we got to recognize, Seth Mandel said this today, I think he's right. What's going on around the world is networked. It's planned. It's thought out. It's directed. It's intentional. It's a father-son team in Australia, but they're not operating alone. They're operating, and we can break those NSA, you can break those operations. They aren't product of the normal culture. I read John Updike's The Terrorist not long after 9/11, not long after reading Bernard Lewis, The Crisis of Islam, and I kind of figured out what the culture was that did it. And we infiltrated, and then we got all PC and we stopped doing it, and we have to start doing it again. But we have to treat these people as the terrorists that they are and realize that the groups in which they hide are extremely vulnerable to it. And this is the two more things to do. How much time do I have here, Harley? I got to make sure I got time. Assault laws. They have to be enforced. All right? Not against hate speech. You can have hate speech protected. You can walk down the middle of Fifth Avenue shouting, "Kill the Jews." You're allowed to do that. But if you put anyone in imminent fear of an unpermitted touching, that is a crime. Might be a misdemeanor, might be a felony. They can't go to jail and be released without bond. They have to spend time in jail. We have to enforce our assault laws. Battery is a touching, an unpermitted touching, but assault is the fear, putting someone in the objective fear of an unpermitted touching. We have to do it. And then finally, Gentiles must support Jewish organizations like Commentary, like Ask Haviv Anything. He has a Patreon, costs $5 a month. Support him. He did quite a remarkable broadcast on Hanukkah in the dark after Bondi Beach. And then finally, Democrats have given up on Jews. They've left them behind. Republicans stand in the gap, like President Trump has. I know a lot of you are mad at him because of his comments, and they were cruel about Rob Reiner. I understand that. You may loathe Trump, but he blew up Iran's nuclear program, and that program could have blown up Israel. So you've got to come around to the fact. You might hate the guy, but he's right on Israel. And everyone I know in the Republican Party is right on Israel, and we will not support anyone who is not. It has to be, I'm not going to run down the names of the people who you can't support. You know, my theory is don't give airtime or oxygen to people who are driven by the attention economy. They want it. They want you to send them their website. They want you to say their name. Don't. Find the good and praise it. Lamar Alexander used that line. He took it from Alex Haley years ago. Find the good and praise it. Find commentary. Find Habib Radigur. Find Dan Senor. There are lots of good places to do it. But recognize it's the evil of our time, and it's going to get worse unless everybody steps up and says, no one helped those people on the subway. Nobody. It's remarkable. It was sort of crystal knock on the New York subway. And Mamdani is coming to town. That's what I have to say. Josh Holmes, one of the fellas from the Ruthless Podcast, joins me. Follow Josh on X at Holmes. Josh, follow the Ruthless Podcast, wherever podcasts are. If you wish to opine on anything the fellas have to say, you must like and subscribe. Mr. Holmes, I just came in smoking hot after an 11-minute monologue on anti-Semitism, so sorry about that. I want to switch up on you a little bit.
I want it. It's important. Well, tell me. I'm glad you do it.
Do you think the Republicans have done enough on anti-Semitism? Because I don't know that we have.
I do not, Hugh. I do not. And I do not see this as a political debate. We cover this on the show today. This is not a political debate. When you've got a group of people over the last 40 years who want to eliminate an entire existence, in this case, the Jewish people and the Jewish state, we know how history has dealt with this sort of thing. You cannot turn a blind eye to it. You just simply can't. It's not a political debate. There is no Michigan problem for Democrats. This is a domestic terror situation. This is an international terroristic situation. You've got to address it with that kind of seriousness.
And I hope DOJ does. You know, after the Bondi Beach thing, I just said, what in the world is going on here? This is going to get worse. It's going to happen in Washington, D.C. It's going to happen in New York. It took two guys, and they can't even get guns in Australia. Australia can't get guns. And so can you imagine what happens when they decide to start popping off here in the United States at Jews?
Well, I mean, we know. We know. I mean, this has happened around the world. Look, my lifetime is marked by demarcations of attacks to try to eliminate either the Jewish people or Western civilization time and time again. It wasn't until post 9/11 that anybody sort of fought back in any meaningful way. And, you know, like let the 20 years of the war on terror set that aside for a moment. The point is these people want to kill us. And that's not a political debate. That's an objective fact.
And I am hoping Republicans stand up and say, we want the assault law. We want the FBI in there. We want DOJ in there. But now I got to go to politics, Josh. Right. I'll go listen to today's podcast. The Republicans they got dragged onto the dance floor by the Democrats into health care. They didn't want to do this dance. They didn't create Obamacare. Obamacare is the other team's complete cataclysmic failure, and they're getting dragged in. What would your advice be to Republicans? Mine would be to leave the dance floor and see how bad it is and then come in. What do you think?
Well, you certainly don't want to settle for Democrat light. I mean, they have one objective and one objective only when it comes to the issue of health care. It's to create entitlement programs and slowly expand the eligibility to the point where you have a single-payer health care system. They look at a place like, you know, the National Health Service in the UK, and instead of understanding that everybody who needs and can afford serious health care then flies to the United States to receive it, they see that as a virtue and a benefit. And it has ruined country by country on how they deal with it. And so they prefer to ruin our healthcare system. And that's what they have attempted to do with Obamacare. But the idea, first of all, this whole issue arose of rising premiums that were subsidized significantly with plus-ups that they're now arguing about. The premiums you're paying now, which are outrageous, which were very predictable, which Republicans talked about, were backstopped by those taxes that we went to go subsidize insurance companies over. So Republicans have a different set of ideas on all of that. I don't think you can cede the space entirely, but there are a handful of things like Steve Scalise put forward in the House that have been well-vetted topics over the last 20 years that I think should receive some consideration. My sense is that Democrats don't actually want to solve this problem. I think what they want to do is have the political issue. It's their most comfortable footing and one that they would like to take in the midterms, but make them vote against some of this stuff. I mean, there's no sense in just ignoring it.
Now you've been in the Hill, and I think you were probably there during Obamacare. And there
Yeah.
was a moment at which Obama almost blinked. It was like a 4 day
Yep.
pause after Ted Kennedy died, and then
Scott Brown.
he told Nancy, remember, he said, "Go
Yep.
ahead, go for whatever the Senate sent over," and they went with it. It's a nightmare. I think the Republicans ought to come up with an idea and do it through reconciliation, but I'm a dummy. I don't know how hard reconciliation is. You actually know it. Can it be done?
Well, it can be done hypothetically, and there's an awful lot of what it is that they're talking about that could be attempted here, and I think probably should be attempted here. I am skeptical about the challenges that are in place. I mean, look, the big beauty is a no-brainer from a Republican standpoint. The big beautiful
Right.
bill that they passed last July, that is something that left to right across the spectrum within the Republican Party, people can agree on, and that was tough. That was hard to do. We've had more difficult political environments since then. We have less unity since then. We've lost a couple of seats in terms of people retiring and all of that. And so you got to be really clear about the feasibility of what it is that you're attempting to do. That said, I think they ought to try to do something. And I think that the president actually has a unique opportunity here, Hugh, because the end of January, we're going to get into maybe another shutdown discussion or something. But it's certainly not going to solve this problem on healthcare. And he's got the opportunity for the State of the Union to reunite the Republican Party in an effort to try to address some of this stuff that can set the agenda for the next 3 or 4 months, leading into a midterm where the American people can see, is there a party that's fighting to try to lower your premiums? And what's the other party doing? And that's a choice I think Republicans would be comfortable with if they can prosecute it.
How do you feel about? I mean, right now we're 10 months away, and I don't think the economy is really locked in until July, maybe
Yeah.
June, before people decide whether or not they're feeling better or worse. It depends on gas, food prices, whether or not job hikes are coming and people are feeling full employed. Is that when it locks in? You're the pros. Does it lock in around
Yeah.
June?
No, you're exactly right. I mean, historically speaking, where consumer confidence and your overall feeling about the economy matters most is in late June and early July, where midterm voters think, okay, this is what my current situation is. Am I shopping for something different or not? So that gives Republicans a little bit of time. I think it gives the president some opportunity here over the first quarter in 2026 to continue to do some sort of deals. I'm not in love with the tariff situation, but if it leads to better deals for American workers and then lowering tariffs overall to provide a better marketplace, I'm all for it. And that opportunity is all in front of us. There's no spilt milk here. I think Republicans and the president of the United States really hold their own destiny in their hands about what they do over the next 6 months.
It's a narrative war. This is why I love Ruthless. I want every youngster out there to, you guys are setting the narratives, but it is a narrative war. Our legacy
It is.
media people want us to think that, everything is terrible and all is gloom and nothing has worked. And in fact, the 3.5% growth this year and gas prices are down. So how do you win the narrative war? We got 1
Well, I
minute.
would just consider for a second that we're having a discussion about the American healthcare system, of which Democratic leaders say, what is Trump doing about this? I don't know. You built the thing, soup to nuts, over the objections of every single Republican that's breathing air in this country. And then they look at the economy 5 years after ruining it, injecting $6 trillion into this economy. And then they turn around, they're like, holy smokes, what's with all this inflation? By the way, prices are a little high. How about we talk about affordability? You gotta level set at some point if you're Republicans. I hope that's what they do.
That's what they do at Ruthless. That's why it's got to be on your podcast list. Send it, spent. Go out next to the Salvation Army people and ring a bell for Ruthless Podcast. Holmes Josh on X. Follow him. Thank you, Josh. I need a little bit of this. Welcome back, America. Been a very troubling week thus far. And I like my Christmas time. I really do. I love the Christmas music. I love Frank. Don't love the healthcare debate we're having on Capitol Hill. Kind of hope everyone goes home, thinks about it. We'll see what the new premiums are. We'll find out who got hurt. Then we can get together and maybe do some smart things like removing barriers to participating in multi-state plans as opposed to state-by-state plans. Gosh, the dumbest stuff in our healthcare system put in by Obamacare. What a catastrophe Obamacare was. We don't want Democrats to fix it. One thing we've got to be careful of are the big healthcare companies, the big pharma companies. One of our sponsors are Conservatives for Lower Healthcare Costs. Their website is pharmawindfall.com. President Trump has been doing what no other president has done to date, putting consumers first. He's working on drug prices around the clock. He's holding Big Pharma at bay. He's not inviting them to the dance. They have an army of lobbyists, and they have a self-serving agenda. What a surprise. All lobbyists do one thing. They work for the people who pay their bills. So Big Pharma is going to go up there and say, see if we can't get some protections for our patents, see if we can't get some subsidies, see if we can't continue our exorbitant and outrageous prices. Conservatives for Lower Health Care Costs warns that this agenda would mean millions in higher premiums and drug costs. Don't be intimidated. President Trump isn't intimidated. He's fighting back. All you have to do is join Conservatives for Lower Health Care Costs. Urge their reform agenda be adopted, like I was talking with Josh Holmes just now. Maybe we get off the dance floor for a while, see what happens with these premium increases. Then we go in with some targeted reforms via reconciliation. Don't need Democratic. But whatever we do, we need lower drug prices. That's one of the things that's killing American consumers. PharmaWindfall.com. That's where you go to join PharmaWindfall.com. I got to take my relief factor. Got to open up my sparkling water from Trader Joe's. Get my relief factor. I haven't gone out again today. Went out for one Fox hit. That's it. I was on with, we were talking about Chicago. I have that lined up after I do my relief factor. I carry curcumin and resveratrol omega right here. I'll tell you right now, I'm 60 miles in the hole. 3 weeks I've been missing my goal. I've been doing 5, 10 miles. And I'm supposed to do 20 to 30 miles a week. Too doggone cold. I won't do it. I refuse to do it. So I got 60 miles to make up in like a week. That's not going to happen. Been the worst year I've had because of weather in 10 years. But I'm okay. I'm in my target weight range. I got enough in. But I got to get the miles in. But Relief Factor will make that available because it keeps away minor aches and pains that come with increased exercise, whether it's walking, trundling, gym work, whether it's weight work, swimming, whatever you like to do, Relief Factor is for you. The starter pack is only $19.95. Call 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief, 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief, or go to their website, relieffactor.com. Here's a little bit of what I had to say on, well, no, I don't have enough time to do that. Do I have enough time to do, Sandra? I was on with Sandra Smith. No, I'll come back and play it later. Instead, I'll tell them about andrewandtodd.com. It's the end of the year. I know some of you are shopping for a house. My kids are. One of my kids is shopping for a house. They got another baby. They're a little bit cramped. They're sitting on a 3% mortgage, and I said to them, man, really? 3%? You're going to stay in this house for 3%? Cost you 6%. You can put a lot down. You got equity in this house. Do the math. And they did the math. It's not that bad. Do the math. Call andrewandtodd.com. Do the math. They'd already called andrewandtodd.com. They did their first mortgage. 888-888-1172. Sometimes sitting on a 3% mortgage when you're sitting on top of each other is not a good idea. Sometimes it's better for your health to pay that 3%. And for some of you, it will actually save money. Because you roll in your car payment, you roll in your student loans, and you roll in your credit card and everything else. You might not be saving a lot of money, but you'll be breaking even. And you'll be in a bigger house. And now is a great time to shop for a house because it is a buyer's market finally. Finally, their house is sitting out there 30, 60, 90 days in various parts of the United States. If you thought about looking 3 months ago, maybe you were busy, school, going back to school, December and January, great time. Call andrewandtodd.com, 888-888-1172, or go to their website, andrewandtodd.com. Thousands of you have used them, including me and Dwayne, family, lots of Salem folks. 888-888-1172, joined by David M. Drucker of The Dispatch. Hello, David. How are you?
I'm great, Hugh. How are you?
I'm hot. I started the show very hot because I got between the time of Bondi Beach and the anti-Semitic attack on the subways of New York last night. I've kind of decided Americans have to stand up or shut up and I'm one of those who stand up. Do you think that Americans are serious about anti-Semitism? Do they have any idea of the scope, and the scale of the problem?
I don't know, because some do, but some don't. And this is now both a right and left problem. This is not only on the right, it's not only on the left. And there is an internal debate going on in both parties, just to look at the political parties for a minute, about whether or not anti-Semitism is a problem or even should be a problem, depending on who you talk to. And then I think, just for rank and file voters, for Americans out there living their lives, I think it's just a matter of whether or not you're exposed to it, whether or not, you follow the news a lot. Because, in my lifetime, right, I'm 54 and I am Jewish, for most of my lifetime, you didn't really have to worry about anti-Semitism in the United States. You didn't have to deal with it, really. This is a sort of problem that has grown over the last 5 to 10 years. First, real slow around along the edges, on the fringes, and now it's a problem that definitely needs to be confronted and addressed.
Yeah, yeah. I divided time into pre 9/11, and then 9/11 to 10/7 is, oh, that's a radical Islamist Al Qaeda ISIS problem that has to be fought. And then after 10/7, it's an anti-Israel problem. And then after Bondi Beach and the ridiculous attacks all over the United States, from Tree of Life Synagogue, which is a right-wing attack, to last night on the subways in New York, a couple of Chabad kids, adults actually, beat up or assaulted by people. And I think it's a virus. I think it's getting worse. And I went through the chronology of Germany, which was a very enlightened country until Mein Kampf came out in 25, Hitler comes in 33, Kristallnacht 38, the first death camp opens up in 1941. I think we underestimate anti-Semitism at our peril.
Yeah, I agree. Look, it's the oldest mind virus in human history, possibly. And being educated and enlightened is no vaccine against having anti-Semitic views. I've met plenty of educated people and read plenty of educated intellectuals, right and left, and they can all be afflicted with this. And I don't have if we had figured out why this happens and where it comes from in a way that it would allow us to stamp it out, of course, we might have done that a long time ago. I think part of the danger too here, Hugh, and we've seen this in human history, is they always come for the Jews first, but they never stop with the Jews.
Right.
Right. So if you believe in, small L liberal American values, if you believe in a country where Christians are free to worship as they see fit, regardless of denomination, this never ends with just the Jews. They always come after everybody else. If you're not religious and, you're whatever your ethnic or racial persuasion is, whatever your sexual orientation, it never ends with the Jews, and it makes society less free and real problematic. And it's also a real problem for us as we try and lead the world, with our moral authority, if we're going to end up bedeviled by this problem once again, and maybe in some ways worse than it was before, just given what we should know by now.
Yeah, I got an email from Harvard yesterday. They sent them to everyone in the Harvard community. And it said, we're recommitted to fighting anti-Semitism and anti-Arab discrimination. And I said, there you have it. There's the problem. There is anti-Semitism at Harvard. There is no anti-Arab discrimination at Harvard. There isn't any. And that is a dilution of the problem. To dilute the problem is to make it less pressing. So if I had a practical tip, I use this in my monologue today. Did you ever read The Winds of War and Remembrance? They became bad television series, but they were very good books.
Never read never read the books. Did see years ago the bad television series, each of them.
Well, I think junior high kids would actually eat them up because they're thrillers, and they introduce, you've got FDR, and you've got Stalin, and you've got Churchill, and you've got Pug Henry, and you've got Aaron Jastrow and Natalie. You got a great plot. I think we've got to teach people history. I really just think it's the death of history in America has made us very, very compromised, immunocompromised to anti-Semitism. Disagree?
Yeah, look, no, I don't disagree. And in particular, because the greatest generation is almost gone, right? So the people that lived through World War II, the people, quite frankly, Hugh, that lived through the Cold War and remember what it was like to live in a world where the Soviet Union existed and we were in a constant struggle for freedom and trying to hold off, nuclear annihilation, which, as a kid, I never worried too much about per se, because I didn't think the Russians or the Soviets, wanted to commit suicide. But my point is, when I talk to younger voters today, meaning anybody born after the end of the Cold War, as far as I'm concerned, that makes you young, and that means that you live in a different world than I did. There's just no conception of what that world was like, of living in a world where the United States isn't the unrivaled power on earth, and what it takes to maintain a scenario in which we can defeat any enemy, even if it's going to cost us, and where we're strong enough where they don't want to challenge us anyway, what that kind of investment takes, but what the economic benefits are. People think that they can have their cake and eat it too, because they haven't lived through it. That's a huge problem when you couple it with the fact, as you mentioned, that the education of history and civics in our schools is generally horrible because there's so much focus on math and science, and understandably so in some sense, but this is some of the byproduct of that, which is negative.
It does begin in the elementary school and the junior high, and I think yesterday was too late to get started. David M. Drucker on X. Thank you, David, from the Dispatch. Always a pleasure to see you. I want to remind you, Angel Tree is sponsoring our annual Ask Everyone You Know to give $30 or more to Angel Tree. $30 takes care of one child whose mother or father is in jail and cannot be with them for prison. $30 provides a present that the child wants, coordination with mom or dad behind bars so that they write a note about the basketball or the gym shoes or the Barbie doll or whatever it is that the kid wanted. The child gets the present, they get the note, they get a Bible, they feel like mom and dad's thinking about them on Christmas, and they get connected to Angel Tree. It's a winner. It's an absolute slam dunk. And thousands of you have stepped forward, some of you with $10 and $15 and $30. That's what you can afford, and I thank you for it. Some of you, like Jan and Carol, take care of 1,000 kids. Thank you. We've got 9 days left. We're going to keep working to get as many. They'll get an Angel Tree. They'll take someone off the list. They'll run over to the local jail. They'll run over to the local prison, or they'll have a list, and they'll take care of another kid. But they can't spend what they don't have. They need your tax-deductible donation, and the easiest way to do it is at my website. At the very top, it says, Make a Child's Christmas. You can't miss it. You can be a Steelers fan, and you cannot miss it. I guarantee you, you cannot miss it. And a lot of you wonder what to do at Christmas, and you you tip people, and that's good. I appreciate that, and I think people are nice to tip people. Dwayne has never tipped me. I don't understand why that is, but I'm always so absolutely kind to him throughout the year. I don't understand it. But as Schroeder tipped me, Schroeder sent me Linus, and I'm not going to play Linus again because I'm going to violate copyright pretty soon. But I'm telling you, even people like Scrooge and Schroeder have a little bit of Christmas in them. And if you have a little bit of Christmas in you, think about Angel Tree and head over there to HughHewitt.com. I've played clips over the year. My buddy Trout down in Denver cuts these clips up. Dallas. Down in Dallas. Tom does all the work for the Angel Tree that we do every year. And he cuts up clips of prisoners, and he cuts up clips of volunteers, and he cuts up clips of former prisoners, and he cuts up clips of children, and he sends them to me, and that's what makes it such an effective campaign. But it's really the audience. You're a wonderful audience. Some of you are secularists, some of you are atheists, agnostics, some are Jewish, some are Christian, some are Islamic, some are Buddhist. It doesn't matter. You understand that a kid at Christmas wants something under the tree and they want a note from mom or dad, and you step up and you hit that bar at the top of HughHewitt.com, and I thank you. I'm joined by Bret Baier, host of Special Report. You can watch it every night, Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. on the Fox News Channel. Bret, I know you covered Bondi yesterday. Last night on New York, there was an incident on the subway where two Chabadniks, they're called Chabadniks, were attacked by anti-Semites. Have you seen that video yet?
I have not. Somebody passed it on, but I have not seen it.
Do you think it's a matter of time till we have a Bondi Beach somewhere here in the United States where someone opens fire on a bunch of Jews?
I think it's very possible, Hugh. I think we're seeing that kind of mandate, sort of a jihad coming from some corners, clearly ISIS and ISIS-related, but also homegrown factions that have anti-Semitic or terrorist goals, and I think it's very possible.
I think it's spreading, and I look at that Brown shooting, and it gets curiouser and curiouser. I've been in this business a long time, so have you. Have you ever seen a mass shooter not captured within 48 hours?
Luigi Mangione was within 48 hours, but not right away. I think, and that was just the shooting in New York. But
Brian Hughes, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so, Hugh. I was trying to think back. I mean, there have been manhunts, obviously the Boston bomber, but it ended quickly, within 24 hours. I agree. I think it's very strange. We're going to get a news conference at 5 p.m. Eastern time. It's probably going to be our lead at Special Report to see what exactly is going on. The fact that authorities could say, listen, there's nothing to fear here, but no, we don't have any information about where this person is a little bit of a dichotomy.
Yeah, to my knowledge, they have not closed the campus. Now, it's been a long time since I was on a college campus, but as a student, but there were a lot of places to hide on a college campus, and they haven't closed down Brown, and obviously the killer could be anywhere, and he shouted something. Has there been any news on what he shouted?
There have been anecdotal students saying Allah Akbar, but we haven't got that nailed down, and authorities haven't confirmed that. So it's a little frustrating. The whole investigation is kind of we haven't seen anything like this either.
No, I agree. All right, let me move to the next question. Republicans and healthcare. I've got Senator Thune on the program tomorrow, and I'm going to compliment him for doing nothing because I think anyone who rushes to try and fix American healthcare is out of their mind. Who wins, if anyone wins, out of this paralysis over healthcare?
I think it's a great question. I think that the average American does not win because premium costs do go up. And it's not Democrat, Republican, or Independent. It's everybody who feels it. So they've got to get to a solution. The problem is that they're running out of time. And this is always the case as they, go against some kind of fiscal cliff or another. By the way, I have Senator Thune on tomorrow on Special Report as well. So it must be a Thune-a-thon.
A Thune-a-thon. Very well done. He's making the rounds and checking it twice. I think he's had a very good year. I give him an A for his first year as leader. How do you grade him?
Yeah, listen, he's dealt with a lot of things. I think there were big issues that he avoided some of the big problems. I think there are some people in the caucus that wish other big pieces of legislation could have gotten through. And so I want to talk to him about all of that and then, forecast what's 26 and what does that look like. You talk to the economic people, they think that Q1, Q2 has a lot of steam behind it. At least the sprouts are growing. And how the Senate and the House deal with it, and if there's another reconciliation bill, there's all kinds of things that I'd like to get into with Senator Thune.
I have David Sachs coming up an hour at 3. He's the president's czar on AI and the president's czar on crypto. I won't touch crypto because I don't understand it at all, but I understand a little bit about AI. I'm going to ask him about it, and they put this EO out there, and I'm hoping that the Congress backs him up with preemption. We'll see. Let me ask you about President Trump has announced a speech for tomorrow night, Bret. What do you guess it is? Venezuela?
I think it's probably a year-ender that is going to touch all the highlights, including what's happening in Venezuela. I think it sounded the way Caroline Leavitt described it as kind of a hit all the bases kind of speech. But I'll be listening for the future of Venezuela, where we are on the China negotiations, a lot of different points that I think it might be a kitchen sink kind of speech at the end of the year.
George H.W. Bush invaded Panama on December 15th of 1989. So I'm wondering, there's some symmetry there. I'll be looking for that. Finally, Brett, I want to ask you about, I have only read half of the Susie Wiles profile in Vanity Fair. Now, years ago, Nick Lehman, who is the dean of the Columbia School of Journalism and a writer for The New Yorker, called me up and asked me, can I do a profile on you? And I said no, and I said, wait a minute. If I can do a profile of you for the Weekly Standard and we have dueling profiles, I agree. Mutually assured destruction. That worked. Would you ever agree to a profile by Vanity Fair?
I would like to do it like you did it. I think. I think that is a good way to do it. But listen, it's sort of like the Bob Woodward 12 interviews. There's all kinds of things that happen that either are taken out of context or you really didn't know that was the focus. But if you're going to do it, it's an open book. And so, when the White House is pushing back on some of these sentences, they're quotes. I don't think anything's going to hurt Susie Wiles. I think she has great standing in the president's eyes, no matter what she says. I think he believes that she is the one that is keeping the trains on time. So, Vanity Fair, I've read the whole thing, but I'm telling you that she's not going to be in trouble. I'm not sure I would do it, though.
I agree. I think she's Superwoman. I hope she's not going anywhere. But no one walks away from those things the way they think they're going to walk away from those things. And I just am always amazed. Tim Alberta's got a scalpel that he brings to those. He does that occasionally. John Boehner got away with it once with a Tim Alberta profile. But generally, what's your advice to high-profile people in profiles?
Make it short. Don't go for 15 interviews, and accept whatever comes out of the back end, because you never know. You really never know, and they're always looking for an angle and a headline. Yeah,
my view is run away. Brett Baer will be watching tonight at 6. I appreciate the time today. Be well, my friend. Brett Baer tonight. Special report every night, Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. Let me remind all of you that we are asking you to support Angel Tree. They are a great sponsor of our show. Every year at this time, we implore the audience to dig as deep as they can to help the Prison Fellowship Ministry, Angel Tree, reach as many men and women behind bars as possible, their children, not them. We worry about their kids. There are 1.5 million children in America with mom or dad, mostly dads, but some have moms, and some people have both mom and dad behind bars. And for them, Christmas isn't nearly as much fun as it is if both of your parents are at home. If both of your parents are at home and the tree is up and Santa Claus is coming and the Christmas carols are on and you have some snow and it's not as cold as it is inside the Beltway, it's a wonderful time of year. But if it isn't that, then you really need the help of Angel Tree. You make it possible with every donation of $30 you make, whether it's $30, $60, $90, it costs $30 to take care of one kid. Our friends Jan and Carol came through with an enormous check to help hundreds and hundreds of kids. Thank you for that. Others of you are invited to do that. And whether it's $10 or a big check like that, everything matters. The widow's mite matters. I ask you just to be as generous as possible. And I remind you, I'm in the Relief Factor studio. Thanks to, I've done like no exercise. I even hold this up when I do no exercise. I will not go out when it's below 20 degrees. I mean, I will. I have to. I have to go to church. I have to go see the kids. I have to do things like that. But I usually ask the fetching Mrs. Hewitt to start the car and warm it up. I know that's supposed to be my job, but I really hate the cold. I'm from Ohio. My theory is that if you come from a cold weather state and you go to California, you lose all your immunities. But if you're from California, you have certain shock value. So I think it's her job to get the car warm. And that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. But I'm also sticking with Relief Factor. Icarian and curcumin is Veritron Omega. It helps your natural immunity system get stronger. Whether you're working out inside with weights, whether you're going to the gym, Whether you're doing 1 mile or 10, whether you're working out in California, in the Midwest, down in the South where the living is easy, or up in the North where you can't move because it's so cold, Relief Factor makes it easier. Call them, 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief. Ask for this starter pack, $19.95, or simply go to their website, relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com, and then come back for more. I'm not going anywhere. We got Byron York coming up in the next hour. David Sachs, President Trump's czar of AI. Right ahead, here on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Vice President Vance gave a Pennsylvania press conference today, and as I was talking with Brett Baer about the Susie Wiles profile in Vanity Fair, the vice president commented on it, cut number 2.
I do want to say something about Susie, though, because, again, having not read this article, Susie is a person I've come to know very, very well. And, you know, a lot of you probably ask yourself, what is it like behind the scenes? What's going on, actually, behind the scenes of the Trump administration? And I'll tell you, the president is exactly in private who he is in public. Like, I'll tell you a little story. Actually a week or so ago, I walk into the Oval Office, and Marco and I are sitting there talking with the president about something. He says, stop. And he looks at our shoes and says, you guys have terrible shoes. So he goes and gets a shoe catalog. And remember, this is the Christmas season, so the president's got some holiday cheer. He goes and gets a shoe catalog and gets his favorite shoes and orders like 4 pairs of shoes for me and 4 pairs of shoes for Marco, because he's like, you know, we need our vice president or secretary of state to look their very best. And, you know, then we went back to talking about whatever major, you know, international issue we were talking about. Again, he is exactly in private who he is in public. That's not true of most people in Washington, D.C. It's not. And I've seen so many people who will say one thing to the president's face, Democrats and Republicans, and then will do the exact opposite behind the scenes. You know why I really, you know what they are, and you know why I really love Susie Wiles? Because Susie is who she is in the president's presence. She's the same exact person when the president isn't around. I've never seen Susie Wiles say something to the president and then go and counteract him or subvert his will behind the scenes. And that's what you want in a staffer. Because as much as I love Susie, the American people didn't elect any staffer. They elected the President of the United States. And what you want, in a staffer is a person who understands they are there to effectuate the will of the American people, and they're there to follow the orders of the duly elected Commander-in-Chief of the United States. And Susie Wiles, we have our disagreements. We agree on much more than we disagree, but I've never seen her be disloyal to the President of the United States, and that makes her the best White House Chief of Staff that I think the President could ask for.
The vice president went on, Susie Wiles, in this profile of her in Vanity Fair, said the vice president likes a conspiracy theory every now and then. The vice president responded, cut number 3.
Vice President Jacob Bogage from the Washington Post, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Same to you.
Unfortunately, I have to ask a bit of an off-topic question from affordability because news events do intervene, and that is the interviews that White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles gave to Vanity Fair, in which she's quoted as referring to you as, excuse me, and again, not my words, sir, but a conspiracy theorist of a decade, and described your transformation from someone who once opposed President Trump to now his vice president as an act of political expediency. And I'd like to give you the chance to respond to that, sir.
Well, first of all, if Susie, I'll trust what you said. I haven't looked at the article. I of course have heard about it, but conspiracy theorist. Sometimes I am a conspiracy theorist, but I only believe in the conspiracy theories that are true. Yeah. And by the way, Susie and I have joked in private and in public about that for a long time. For example, I believed in the crazy conspiracy theory back in 2020 that it was stupid to mask 3-year-olds at the height of the COVID pandemic, that we should actually let them develop some language skills. You know, I believed in this crazy conspiracy theory that the media and the government were covering up the fact that Joe Biden was clearly unable to do the job. And I believed in the conspiracy theory that Joe Biden was trying to throw his political opponents in jail rather than win an argument against his political opponents. So, at least on some of these conspiracy theories, it turns out that a conspiracy theory is just something that was true 6 months before the media admitted it. And that's my understanding. Now, look, I do want to say something about Susie, though, because, again, having not read this article.
We've covered that. Let's go to cut number 4, where the vice president is asked about the affordability crisis when it comes to housing and illegal immigration. Cut number 4.
I'm a little surprised by when the Democrats talk all the time about affordability. Democrats say, you know, things aren't affordable. This isn't affordable. This has gotten more expensive. Drugs have gotten more expensive. Housing's gotten more expensive. And you know what? They're right, and it was because of them. It ain't that hard. If you go back to the 4 years of the Biden administration, why did housing get so expensive, double in price during the Biden administration? It's because Joe Biden let in 20 million illegal immigrants who took homes that ought by right go to American citizens and to the people of this great state.
Then let's go to Secretary Rubio at a Senate gaggle about another boat strike. Cut 11.
Obviously, we had a classified hearing, so the details of which we can't discuss. It's, I believe, our 22nd or 23rd bipartisan engagement. We'll continue to engage with Congress on this. We're headed to the House now to do a similar briefing and provide updates on this counter-drug mission, which is focused on dismantling the infrastructure of these terrorist organizations that are operating in our hemisphere, undermining the security of Americans, killing Americans, poisoning Americans, and this has been a highly successful mission that's ongoing and continued, and we're pleased to be here today to update Congress on how that's developing and how that's moving forward. As I said, I believe it's our 22nd, 23rd such engagement, certainly been at least the 4th or 5th that I've been involved in, and those will remain and be on.
Then Secretary Hegseth followed. Cut number 10.
It is the 22nd bipartisan briefing we've had on a highly successful mission to counter designated terrorist organizations, cartels, bringing weapons meaning drugs, to the American people and poisoning the American people for far too long. So we're proud of what we're doing, able to lay it out very directly to these senators and soon to the House, but it's all classified, we can't talk about it now. We're also going to tomorrow allow the HASC and SASC to see the unedited video of the September 2nd, alongside with Admiral Bradley, who has done a fantastic job, has made all the right calls, and we're glad he'll be there to do it. But in keeping with long-standing Department of War policy, Department of Defense policy, of course we're not going to release a top-secret, full, unedited video of that to the general public. And
then Speaker Mike Johnson on health care. Cut number 12 to a
It is the Democrats' Unaffordable Care Act that broke America's health care system, as has been recounted this morning. And it's the Democrats who have refused every good faith Republican effort to fix it along the way. Now, this is 15 years into this saga that the American people have been drugged through because the Democrats decided 15 years ago to break the system. They insisted when they passed the Unaffordable Care Act that it would reduce premiums, it would provide more choice and higher quality and all of that. And none of that ever happened. In fact, quite the opposite effect is what we have seen. All this was foreseeable, and that's why Republicans didn't support it. Premiums have skyrocketed. The quality of care has plummeted in so many places and in so many cases around the country, and fraud is absolutely rampant in the system.
Thank you, Speaker Johnson. Again and again and again. Obamacare is what the problem is, and when Democrats want to fix it, Republicans will help them. When I come back, I was on Fox News earlier today talking about the city of broad shoulders, Chicago. I'll play it for you when we return. And to my friends in Chicago, I'm talking to you, Mike, my son's college roommate. He lives in Colorado, but he's from Chicago. To my friends from Chicago and in Chicago, don't be mad at me. Fox asked, I answered. Cut number 1.
Fox News contributor Hugh Hewitt is the host of the Hugh Hewitt Show and joins us now. Hugh, always good to have you on the program. You know, as a born and raised Chicagoan, I see this happening and I think we don't need one more bad decision to chase more businesses and more people out of that city.
Yeah, the mayor is so wrong, and good afternoon, Sandra. Chicago's been around since 1837. It took almost 200 years to get its budget up to $12.4 billion. 40% of that budget occurred in the last 6 years. So they have a $1 billion deficit. Brandon Johnson wants to borrow more money. He wants to raise a head tax on big employees, and he wants to tax on big employers, and he wants to tax computers, cars, personal property. City Council is saying no. They're out of money. They're out of ideas. Brandon Johnson's coming up with a lot of rhetorical flourishes, but nobody likes any of his ideas. Most of that budget deficit, it's $1 billion, goes to pensions and it goes to interest, so it's like borrowing more on a credit card. There is Chapter 9 in the bankruptcy code. It's been used by the city of Detroit. It's been used by the Orange County, back where I used to live. I think Chicago is headed that way because they took all the COVID money from 2019 forward. They spent it. They didn't replace it with sources of revenues. They've cut nothing back. So Brandon Johnson is now flailing around like most Democrats in most big cities. They're out of money and they're out of ideas, and I'm out of sympathy because it's just mismanagement.
Yeah, well, but some residents are stuck there. You know, this is their home. This is where they work. Their kids go to school. And it becomes more and more brutal when you have exchanges like this, where the mayor was pressed to name one other city, Hugh, where a head tax similar to what he is proposing actually worked. Watch this.
So if the head tax is such a great idea, where is it working now? Because there are, what cities, who you turn to, where are you looking at and saying, wow, wish we were doing what they're doing, because I can't find one.
Well, look, if you're asking me if I believe that there is a model that's better than the city of Chicago right now, I'm going to tell you there isn't. We are setting the trend.
So that's all you're going to get on that, Hugh. And then there was a reporter asking the mayor to name one business leader who supports this proposal. Watch.
Any examples of CEOs or CFOs who say, I'm on board?
Well, I don't have any examples of CEOs who are not on board.
Well, can you give us an example of one that is?
Well, I mean, I guess we could draw the conclusion that all of them are, because none of them have said that they're opposed to it. Listen, I'm not going to respond to one CEO. 74, 75%, as high as 80% of Chicagoans support challenging these big corporations to pay their fair share in taxes.
Bad idea to ignore those business owners. Look what's happened with licensed businesses operating in that city, Hugh. This is 2024 alone, 19% less since 2015. And as you well know, Hugh, big businesses have been fleeing, including Boeing, one of the biggest employers in that city for a long time, Caterpillar, Guggenheim Partners, Tyson Foods, and still on their way out, Nicey Chicago and Walgreens. He better start paying attention. If he doesn't, what's at risk here? I don't know how much worse you can make it.
Capital is mobile.
Yep.
Capital is mobile. People with money can leave. Capital is mobile. Ken Griffin left. A lot of different people with wealth in the city of Chicago have left. Look, it's not all bad. The Bears beat the Browns on Sunday, but it doesn't mean that the city's going to turn around. So they've got a sports team. People love Chicago that live in Chicago. I have friends in Chicago, but it's becoming increasingly hard to justify their family's future staying in that city. It's dangerous and it's broke. And the mayor is delusional. That last answer, no one said it's bad. It's sort of like my saying, I've got the most popular program in Chicago. Nobody's told me I haven't, so I guess it must be the most popular program in Chicago. It's simply not logical. He's a terrible mayor. He's got a bad city council. They've got union debt. They've got an unfunded pension liability to make your eyes roll back in your head. And the last thing they need to do is raise taxes. They need to look at Chapter 9. Detroit did it. Orange County did it. The only way to get out is tough choices. That's what Chicago has to make right now if they want to stay the city of broad shoulders.
Yeah, you double and triple people's property taxes in a matter of years, which is the absolute truth on the ground there. And they will take their ball and they will go home. They'll find somewhere else to go. Yep. But to your point, go Bears. We wish the city well. Things can turn around.
I did not. Wait, Sandra, I did not say go Bears. I said the Bears beat the Browns. They got lucky. Browns did score 3 points. So, and Shador looked pretty good. I did not say go Bears. I mean, I don't want to be misquoted. I love you, Sandra, but we can't have me saying go Bears ever. No. And to my listeners in Chicago, I'm sorry. They ask, I answer. They put the questions in front of me. I got to take my swing. Byron York is the chief correspondent for the Washington Examiner, a weekly guest. Byron, how are you today? Cold, I assume.
Cold, you're exactly right, but doing well. Thank you.
Okay, you and me both. I want to talk to you about three things: the Bondi Beach massacre, the Brown University shooting, and last night's New York subway assault on two Chabadniks, people from Chabad who were put upon by anti-Semites in the subway. Do they tie together in your mind?
Well, no, I'll be interested to hear. I mean, obviously, the Bondi Beach thing is clearly the authorities there actually knew that these shooters had connections to ISIS. They may have known that they went off and trained for a month beforehand, and even after that happens, even after the murders take place, the authorities talk about gun control, as if they couldn't have found these people and gotten rid of them.
Now, Byron, I'm leery about what I read. I've read there were only 2 policemen at the Hanukkah celebration.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Well, I have seen that, and it's hard actually to believe. I've seen about the lack of training and all of that of these, but I am not clear enough myself on exactly what took place, during the shooting, where police were, how long it took them from the first shot that was fired, how long it took them to respond.
Okay. Second subject,
I don't really know,
is the Brown University massacre. I asked Brett Baer earlier. He said there are reports, unconfirmed, but reports, that the words that were shouted were Allahu Akbar. Have you read those reports as well?
I have. The story right now, though, I have to say, with Brown is just about the authorities. And, I mean, this is a mass killer who goes in with a long gun and shoots a bunch of people and gets away. In addition, in a community that is apparently just jammed with surveillance cameras, in which the authorities can't produce any really useful information. I think people have a right to be really nervous.
Byron, I in 35 years in this business, and you're not as long as tooth of it I am, but I've been doing it for no mass killer has ever evaded arrest for 48 hours. It's never happened. So this is a first time ever collapse of policing competence. And they won't tell us what he shouted. Why do you think they won't tell us what he shouted?
Well, we don't know who he is. And we don't know, we don't know anything about this. And a killer who takes a long gun to a mass shooting is probably not planning to get away.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of these are suicide missions with the assumption that they will be shot by the police. Would that had happened, but it didn't. So it's really extraordinary. How
the third event is last night. I don't know if you've seen the video of the New York subway where 2 members of the local Chabad were assaulted and they were battered. Assault is the imminent imminent unpermitted touching, and battery is the actual grabbing of someone. They managed to get off the subway without getting beaten up, but it was clearly anti-Semitic, and there was anti-Semitic talk. So my question is, are we expecting an explosion of anti-Semitism even bigger than what we've been through since 10/7 in the United States? I mean, you can't match 10/7 in Israel, but do you think we have a Bondi Beach coming here?
Well, you clearly have to worry about such a thing. In part, when you look at the kind of anti-Semitic incidents that you've seen in the United States, a lot of it does involve our immigration policies of letting in people without enough vetting from countries in which there's a lot of hatred of Jews, there's the support for terrorism, and now you have that in the United States.
And
So
the elites, I got a letter from Harvard yesterday. It went to everyone. I'm not special. Announcing they're very pleased to extend Neil Garber's presidency. And that he remained, four paragraphs down, he remains committed to fighting anti-Semitism and anti-Arab discrimination. There is no anti-Arab discrimination at Harvard, Byron. There isn't. What does that tell you about Harvard? Have they changed?
Well, they're certainly not interested in finding out evidence of anti-Semitism in their community. And the idea of equating anti-Semitism with anti-Arab activity is just an effort to.
It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous.
Confuse people and muddle up the whole situation.
And that is the problem. And I think what do you expect the president to talk about tomorrow night? I don't think he's announcing the invasion of Venezuela. If it is, it's the least surprise invasion ever, although George H.W. Bush ordered the troops in on December 15th, 1989. But what do you think he's going to talk about?
I think he's going to talk about what a great job his administration has done on everything. And prices, inflation, affordability, and sort of a year-end progress report.
Good move?
Not a bad move. I don't know how much effect it will have, but I do think, when he gives the economy a grade of A++++, I think there were 5 pluses. That's something that a lot of people, don't accept. They're not feeling it, as opposed to just saying, look, the rate of inflation is going down, but we know that means prices are still going up, and that's not good enough. And what we have to do is we have to bring your wages up to where they are outstripping a low level of inflation. And,
it depends entirely on what he says. And he hasn't got the Bill Clinton, I feel your pain down, and he never will. But he's pretty good with numbers.
Everything is great.
Yeah,
and,
that's bad. That's not so good. Byron York, talk to you again next week if we're lucky. Follow him on X at Byron York. Just reading up on the fact that an MIT professor was shot and murdered outside of his home. Nuno Laureiro, 47, was the director of MIT's Plasma Science and Fusion Center. And he was murdered last night outside of his home. What a wild week this is. The season of peace and tranquility, of getting together and having good cheer, the season of light of Hanukkah for our Jewish friends, the season of Christmas for my Christians friends, and the season of goodwill for everyone is not so full of goodwill. But that doesn't mean you can't make it so. You can actually help with Angel Tree. Again, surrounded by darkness, add a little light. Refuse to succumb, and you can do 2 things. Give to Angel Tree. $30 makes another kid the happy recipient of a present, a Bible, a note from mother or father, or both parents if they're behind bars, and most importantly, a connection with the Angel Tree Ministry, which takes care of the children of prisoners while their parents are in prison. Give them family and community. They run camps in the summertime. They run programs all year long for the men and women behind bars who have asked for the help for their family. And that's expensive. There are 1.5 million such children, 1.5 million such children. And they could use your help. Thank you, Jen and Carol, for your wonderful donation. Thanks to all of you who took the time to send 10, 15, 30, 60, 90. You Steeler fans, if you want to sponsor 4 kids, it's $120. I can make fun of the Steelers because I think they're 7-6, and they're 2 games ahead in the Central. This was the year for the Browns to actually limp through with Joe Flacco. They chose not to. But Shador looked pretty good against the Bears. I'm for draft Carnell Tate, 2 offensive linemen with the first 38 picks. They should have 3 in the first 38. We'll be in the hunt next year. It's all about next year if you're a Browns fan. Finally, I ask this because we're this close. I think we get 10 more of you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. You have to go to Hugh Hewitt and YouTube, Google it. Take you to my page. You'll say subscribe. Doesn't cost any money. It's free. All it does is add to the algorithm. all it does is clear the hurdle. And we've been working on it for about 9 months. Someone finally told me it mattered to get to 100,000 subscribers, so we started to pay attention to it. So you can follow me on X at Hugh Hewitt. You can follow Dwayne's World. Anywhere there's a podcast, you can follow my podcast, Highly Concentrated Hugh. It's all free. You can subscribe to The Universe, and you can go to Hugh Hewitt and YouTube and subscribe to the feed and get us our plaque. It's a silver plaque. I don't know how we get it, but we'll get it. A couple of weeks back in the green room over at Fox, I met a young Congressman, Riley Moore, from West Virginia's 2nd District, or at least he seems young to me. He's not that young. And we got to talk at it. He's on approps. I would like to talk to freshmen on appropriations because that's a big deal. And I don't know how it happened, but Juan Ciscomani got the magic wand waved over him 4 years ago and became a freshman on approps. And I talked to Juan often, so I wanted to talk to Riley Moore today. Congressman, welcome. Merry Christmas to you. How are you enjoying D.C. in your first wrap-up session?
Well, Merry Christmas to you as well, Hugh. And, it's a little bit of a rough ride here today. Looks like a rule's about to go down as we're speaking. So going to be hard to move that health care package forward that leadership has. So, but all in all, I'd say in terms of appropriations, I feel super optimistic on it. I think we're going to get, if not all of them, most of the appropriations bills done. Which is a feat in itself in terms of reestablishing regular order in this institution. So happy about that.
I am very happy that the National Defense Authorization Act looks like it's going to make its way through. And I know over on the other side, Senator Collins is chair of appropriations. And I'm just curious, were you happy when they gave you the big committee? I've always thought approps was the most important committee, although I know people like to say there are three Democrats, Republicans, and appropriators. Do you like being on appropriations?
I love being on appropriations. And, for my state of West Virginia, we have a long history of appropriators here, certainly. I'm sure, as you know, as a student of this institution. For me, that was the only committee that I was angling for. I wanted appropriations and was blessed enough to get the high sign to serve on that committee. So, just thrilled to be able to be on there.
Now, can the audience expect that there will be any kind of a shutdown in January? If you've got regular order for all but one or two of the bills, if there's a shutdown, it won't be for much of the government, right?
No, it won't. And remember, we've already passed 3 bills, so you'd already just be in a partial shutdown there. I don't see any resistance at all as it relates to getting defense done. And when you do defense, you always couple labor HHS with that bill as well. So I think we're clear there. But I think what you're going to see next is a 3-pack of appropriations bills coming back over from the Senate. That'd be energy and water, interior, and commerce, justice, science. And then I think towards the end of this CR, you'll see defense and labor HHS get passed. But I think you're going to have upwards of 85% of the discretionary budget passed. I think, I wouldn't say easily, but feeling confident about getting that done. And then, you'd end up CRing maybe 2 of the bills. Homeland Security, you got to think, look, we got Homeland Security, $175 billion in reconciliation. Maybe perhaps the juice isn't worth the squeeze on conferencing that bill. Since we were able to get them funds through reconciliation, the one big, beautiful bill. But I'm hopeful we get all 12 done. I am. And that we are working towards that. The speakers talked about that. Chairman Tom Cole has talked about that. And so has Susan Collins. So I am very optimistic and hopeful that we are able to actually get all 12 of these bills done, which would be just marvelous.
Now, I don't want to deflate your Christmas spirit, Congressman Moore, but I've been doing this show for 25 years, and you may be peaking in your freshman year in terms of regular order. It doesn't normally go this smoothly. So you might want to write down what it feels like to actually get it done. Before I come back to the Republican health care bill, I wanted to talk to you about something I talked with Governor Morrissey about. The feds are trying to move the FBI across the street to the Reagan building because the old Hoover building is the ugliest building in town. I talked to your aunt about this, and she said, no, we think it ought to go in that bill. And I talked to your governor, Governor Morrissey, and I said, why don't you send it out and give it a campus where you're from? Harper's Crossing. What do we call that? Harper's Ford? Harper's Ferry.
Harper's Ferry.
Why don't we give it a campus in West Virginia? What do you think about that? It seems like a crazy thing to move it across the street.
No, I'm totally into that. And see, here's the thing. Why does the FBI headquarters have to be in Washington, D.C.? It actually doesn't. I mean, you have the number 2 headquarters of it is in Alabama, right? But the actual headquarters of the FBI, it doesn't need to be there. And I think the more government entities we get out of here and actually into real America, I think the better off we're all going to be. So I'm definitely for that. If somehow somebody could do that, I'll vote for it every day of the week, if that's possible, to move the FBI headquarters to West Virginia.
Now, I have a manager over at Salem who drives in every day from Harper's Ferry, every single day. It's not a bad commute. Do you do that, or do you stay in town overnight?
Well, it just depends what's going on here. So tonight, I will go home. I want to see my kids. I got 3 kids, 7, 5, and 3, and I'm trying to balance doing this job and being a father and a husband. So I go back as much as I can. Now, once we're in markup season, as it relates to appropriations, many nights I stay here, and I stayed here last night. So it just kind of depends on the schedule and what's going on. Still doing my job, but then also being able to see my family in the evening as well, or in the morning when I get up very early to come back down here.
Well, that makes a lot of sense to me. All of my friends for the I've been back for 10 years, but for the 30 years I lived in California, and they would fly back and forth. That was really a nightmare for a congressman on the West Coast. Here's where I want to finish. I don't think we're going to get anything done on health care. I don't know if you'll get anything out of the House. Maybe you will. It's not going to get out of the Senate. I don't know why we're going through all these shenanigans. And I want to see the actual price hikes that will impact the 20% of Americans that are in the state exchanges before we decide on what to do. Why are Democrats in such a screaming hurry to get past the artificial deadline that they built into the law? Does anyone explain it to you why we must get something done right now?
Well, they're using this artificial deadline to bludgeon the Republican Party with misinformation about this. And the unfortunate thing, they've been able to intertwine the idea of extending the COVID era subsidies for Obamacare with everybody's premiums going up. That's not correct at all. We could tomorrow vote to extend these COVID era subsidies, and that's not going to affect everybody else's premiums at all. If they're going up, they're going to go up. So the people need to disentangle those ideas from each other. What we're trying to do in a more holistic sense is lower everybody's premiums in this country. Why are we focused on the 1.6 million people that would be affected by the COVID era subsidies being extended? How about everybody's healthcare is getting more expensive? It's harder out here for everybody, and we have to handle this in a manner that's fair to everybody else, creates more affordability, but also portability for people to be able to choose what healthcare plans are best for them.
I think that'll let you do some of the messaging, Riley Moore. Congressman Riley Moore, freshman from West Virginia's 2nd District. Thank you. Merry Christmas to you. Safe driving home tonight, if it's indeed tonight or tomorrow.
Oh, thanks so much, Hugh. God bless you. Merry Christmas.
And to you. Let me tell a few of you who are listening right now that I got a couple of ideas for Christmas presents for you. One of them are our friends at besthotgrill.com, besthotgrill.com. Rhett and Irene have been making Best Hot Grills. Well, the business has been in California for a very long time. They make the Solaire infrared grills. They come in 5 different sizes. And if you want a gift to give and you've run out of time and you've got the best client that you forgot about, or they just gave you a bunch of business in the last week and you didn't think about them, show your love and gratitude. If you're watching on the Salem News Channel, you'll get to see the 5 sizes of the Solaire infrared grill. Go over there and find America's best grill. And when you buy it, whomever you give it to, and by the way, you can give it to Dad, you can give it to Grandpa, and you can give it to anyone who tailgates or goes out on a picnic, and they will think of you every time that they get their best hot grill out of their car, and they take it to the picnic or to the tailgate, and they'll say, Generalissimo gave this to me. Well, they won't say that. Generalissimo is like the Grinch around here. But Best Hot Grill, you will thank me for it. It is absolutely the best, made in America. Solaire infrared grill, and while you're at it, the Rasmussen Fireballs, unique and only made in America, from besthotgrill.com. Finally, let me tell you about WebRoot Total Protection. It is the season to get taken to the cleaners. I look every day at my text messages, and every day I get phished. You know what? PHISHED. Someone trying to get me to click on something that isn't what it says it is. Someone sending me an email to try and get me to return an email, to go to a website. Stop them before they arrive. Protect yourself against malware. And right now, for the holiday season, you can get 60% off WebRoot, all-in-one protection for less than $75 at webroot.com/Hewitt. Give the gift of cybersecurity and peace of mind. Can start at less than $20 with my exclusive offer. WebRoot is the perfect gift even for the hardest person to shop for if they've got a computer, and they've got two different options. They've got one identity, 5 devices, or up to 10 identities and 10 devices on the family plan. But whether you go for the one identity or up to 10 identities, go with webroot.com/Hewitt. That's webroot.com/Hewitt. webroot.com/Hewitt. So pleased to welcome back to the program David Sachs. David is the chair of the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology. He's the AI and crypto czar. He's actually a double czar, which is really something I haven't heard of before. There are czars all over D.C., but he's a double czar, David. Are you the only double czar you know of?
As far as I know, yes. I guess that's right, Hugh. Good to see you again.
It's good to see you again, and thank you for spending time with me. I want to remind people before we start, David went to Stanford. He's a Chicago lawyer, so he knows what he's talking about on the law. He's one of the original PayPal Mafia. He's been on the show before. He's on the All In podcast, so it's a smart guy alert. David, I want to remind you, we're talking to Steelers fans, so we got to slow everything down. First question is out of the box. When Oppenheimer blew up the bomb, he turned to his friends and said, "Now I have become death, the destroyer of worlds." Have you had that feeling come over you as you deal with AI as the White House czar yet?
Well, Hugh, I'm personally not that worried that AI is going to be this catastrophic technology. I understand that a lot of people are afraid of it. And in fact, for the last couple of years, you've heard this analogy that AI is like nuclear weapons. I think that analogy is highly overstretched. And the reason I say that is because, first and foremost, AI is a consumer technology. The best AI models are the ones that you can get as a consumer, whether it's ChatGPT or Grok or the new Gemini model, which is available on Google search. The best AI models are ones that you can use for yourself. And so every consumer is going to have a powerful AI model in their pocket, on their phone. Every business is going to use this technology. And I do think that makes it quite different than nuclear weapons, although certainly there is, a potential dual use there that AI is a technology that can be used for military purposes, and I certainly acknowledge that. But I think it's also, like I said, a very powerful consumer technology, and that does make it quite different than something like nukes.
Well, a few days ago, I was on the special report panel and was asked by Brett my opinion of the president's AI EO, and I said I'm all in favor of it because there is no silver medal in AI. There's only a gold medal, and we have to win it. China can't win it. So because it has national security ramifications that are immense and consumer ramifications that are immense, but mostly national, we can't afford to come in second. Was that a fair statement?
Yes, I think it is. I mean, I think we completely agree on this, Hugh. We are in an AI race. It's a global competition, and at the national level, our main competitor is China. They're really the only other country that has the talent, the technology, the expertise to potentially beat us. I don't think they will if we do the right things or keep doing the right things under the president's leadership. We are ahead in the AI race, but it is definitely a competition. It's going to have major implications for our economy and for our national security, and it's definitely a competition we want to win, and that's where you and I are completely aligned on this, Hugh.
So the thing we need to explain to people is, why can't we catch up once we fall behind? Is there an exponential sort of growth and advantage that occurs to whoever makes the breakthroughs in AI first?
Well, that's possible, but I think we just don't want to fall behind, because once you do, it's hard to catch up. I mean, there are moats that get established, and whether they're business moats or they're research and development breakthroughs, it's definitely the kind of thing where you don't want to fall behind. another reason why you don't want to fall behind is that in technology races, what we see is that the companies or the technologies that build the biggest ecosystems are the ones that win. And this is why, our leading technology companies want to do things like have app stores or build platforms, is because if you get the most apps in your app store, or you get the most developers writing on top of your platform, then that creates powerful lock-in. And we don't want to get in the situation where we're behind China in those areas and they build the biggest ecosystem, and then the whole world will be using Chinese technology instead of American technology, and then it'll be Chinese values that are spreading across the world instead of American values, and that's definitely a situation we don't want.
Now, as soon as I made my sweeping endorsement, I guess it was to Aisha, not Brett, Phil Wegman over at Real Clear Politics chimed in, then why are we allowing them to buy NVIDIA's last generation of chips? To which my only answer is, they're not that good compared to Blackwell that comes up. Why are we allowing them to buy the last generation as opposed to Blackwell?
I think that's a fair question, Hugh. I mean, here's the way that we see it, is that the American policy, and this is bipartisan, it goes back into the Biden administration, is that China is not allowed to buy our leading edge chips, but they are allowed to buy our lagging chips. The H200 chip that you're talking about, and before that, the H20 chip, it is not a leading edge chip. It may have once been a leading edge chip, but it is now a lagging chip. And the reason why you're willing to sell them lagging chips is because it takes market share away from their national champion, Huawei. And that's important because it deprives Huawei of revenue that they can use to then scale up. And also there's a very important developer network effect built on top of these chips. So it's not just about the chips, it's about the software that's running on top of the chips. NVIDIA has this operating system called CUDA. There's a bunch of developer toolkits, tool chains, and libraries that run on top of CUDA. And if you deprive China, and so if you allow China to use the old generation of NVIDIA chips, then at least you keep them dependent on that software ecosystem. China has several 100,000 AI developers, and they would rather use the NVIDIA ecosystem and stay on NVIDIA. But if you force them onto the Huawei ecosystem, then they will start writing software for the Huawei stack, and that would be something that's undesirable. So we think there's some value in maintaining a Chinese dependency on the previous generation of chips. Now, for that very reason, the Chinese government, according to an article in the Financial Times, is saying they're not going to allow the NVIDIA chips in there. So I think the Chinese government sees the same thing that we do, which is they want to be semiconductor independent, the same way, Hugh, that we wanted to be energy independent as a nation. They want to be semiconductor independent, and they're saying they're not going to allow those NVIDIA chips in because they want to prop up and boost up Huawei, their national champion. So this is a case where I think that there's always going to be room for disagreement because there's that, where exactly we draw that line between leading and lagging chips is always going to be up for debate. But it looks to me like right now, the Chinese government's not going to allow in our chips because they want to be independent.
Well, if they don't allow in the old chips, that is a complete answer to the argument that Philip put forward, because then they want to grow their indigenous chip.
Yes, there's no question. They want to indigenize. They definitely want to indigenize their chip sector. There's no question about it. And just
now, let me ask you.
And just one last thought on this is that China is the second largest market in the world for chips. So, if China is able to indigenize and they give that market exclusively to Huawei, Huawei will use that to then scale up, achieve critical mass, and then they will then export chips at low cost all over the world. So that is basically their strategy. And again, if we can take share away from Huawei and slow them down from doing that, then that's a worthwhile pursuit. So that is the thinking. But I think that the Chinese government sees the same thing we do, and that's why they are essentially giving this huge market subsidy to Huawei.
That makes perfect sense. David, one market question. I'm not a market guy. I don't give market advice, but I read the Journal and the Financial Times. Is there an AI bubble in your view? Are we going to see a rapid deflation in value in some sectors in the AI realm?
I don't think there's a bubble, Hugh. I would say that there's a lot of volatility because anytime you're underwriting to a very big outcome in the future, and we're talking about investments that are being made on, a 5 to 10 year time frame, there's going to be a lot of volatility in that. But one important indicator here is that all of the GPUs that are being bought and run in data centers are being used. I mean, there is tremendous demand for this type of computing processing power. That makes it a little different than the dot-com bubble. If you go back to the late 90s and we had this big fiber build out, there was a lot of what was called dark fiber back then, where, again, there were these huge investments that were being made that weren't being used yet. Now, eventually all that fiber got used, but people realized in the year 2000 that the fiber wasn't being used and we had a big crash. In this case, all the GPUs are being used. So there's tremendous end user demand for these services.
Now, I want to thank you for one thing. You're a very successful investor, innovator, entrepreneur, and lawyer, and you've agreed to go back to D.C. How do you find the D.C. bureaucracy compared to the Silicon Valley entrepreneurial investing environment?
Well, it's a big culture clash. I mean, these are two very, very different cultures. Silicon Valley obviously moves very quickly. There's tremendous competition there. Companies perceive that they're in a race for survival a lot of the time, and they just move very quickly. And there's also a mentality that, again, like I mentioned before, you want to build the biggest tech ecosystem. So there is a partner mentality. You want to encourage other people developing software on top of your applications. DC is a little different. It's a different mindset. It's a little bit more of a command and control mindset. It's a little bit more bureaucratic, obviously, so things move more slowly and people update their assumptions a little bit more slowly about what's happening. So two very, very different cultures.
All right, now I'm saving the vegetables for the last segment in the segment on the podcast, which has to do with preemption. And I'll explain why when we get there. Let me give you the last sexy question. In my world of punditry, there's no one greater than the late Dr. Charles Krauthammer. He proposed the theory that the reason we'd never heard from another advanced civilization is that all advanced civilizations always blow themselves up, that they always take their technology to the logical level of destroying each other. Skynet. Do you view that as the inevitability?
Well, I've seen those movies too, and I understand the concern, but I think it's pretty much in the realm of science fiction. We don't really see that happening right now. What I would recommend that everyone do is just try these new tools. You go to ChatGPT, or you go to Grok, or use Google, and what you'll see is that these AI chatbots are good at giving you answers, but it's really like a better web search. It doesn't have a mind of its own. It can't provide its own objective. It doesn't try to figure out what it's supposed to be doing other than what you tell it to do. And there's really no evidence that that is not the case. So, we're building these, they're called large language models, and that's quite different than I think what's portrayed in a lot of the science fiction.
In my law school faculty meetings, all we hear about LLMs is that we can't give take-home exams anymore. Okay, that's a change, but it's not the end of the world because people will go home. Will it wipe out the millions of jobs that the doomsayers say? I don't think it will, but what do you think?
No. I don't think so. We don't see any. We don't see any evidence of that. So, in fact, it's quite the opposite. We're seeing a job boom right now. So, you look at the build out right now of data centers and infrastructure. Construction workers are seeing their wages increase 30% because of the demand. In fact, we're seeing many categories of labor. We have unfilled jobs. It's everything from plumbers to electricians to carpenters, the people who pour concrete or hang drywall, drivers, even architects, engineering. There's a tremendous demand being created right now. And so wages are going up because we can't hire enough laborers. So it's just not the case that we're seeing a lot of job loss. And in fact, there was just a study by the Yale Budget Lab, saying that in the 33 months since the launch of ChatGPT, there's been no discernible disruption to the labor market. They're seeing no major job loss. So again, you're hearing a lot of these doomer forecasts, but we're not seeing any of it in the data so far.
And a quick exit question to the next segment. How interested is the president in this? Does he call you and say, David, tell me about this every day, or is it quarterly or monthly? How interested is he?
I think he's very interested in this. I think that he wants America to win. He's the one who declared that we have to win the AI race in his AI speech on July 23rd. And he understands how important this is for our economy. Right now, AI is providing roughly half of the growth of the economy. The president gets that, and he wants us to win.
now we get to the meat and the vegetables of the discussion. Last week, President Trump issued an executive order preempting the states from regulating artificial intelligence and its development. I stood up and cheered because I teach preemption every year, and I explained to people that Congress was given the Interstate Commerce Authority to make sure that the states didn't screw it up. But I've never seen it done by executive order before, David. Now, you're a University of Chicago trained lawyer, so you're a smart guy. Have you ever seen executive order used to declare preemption before?
Well, Hugh, we know we're being careful about what we can do by executive order and what has to be done by legislation. So in the executive order, we recognize that we need Congress to enact a federal framework. And so we're asking for a law, and the EO tasked members of the administration to work with Congress to deliver that framework. We, again, want a bill that the president can sign. And the executive order provides a set of principles that we'd like to see contained in that bill. And then furthermore, it contains a set of tools that the federal government can use to push back on the most onerous examples of excessive state law in this area. So we're recognizing that this EO is not the preemption itself. It's more of a roadmap to the preemption, but we will ultimately need a law from Congress.
All right, then we are in 100% agreement. And it's a good message to the governors and the state legislatures to stay away. Let's get into the nitty gritty. Section 3 of the EO reads, within 30 days of the date of this order, and it was December 11th, the Attorney General shall establish an AI litigation task force whose sole responsibility shall be to challenge state AI laws inconsistent with the policy set forth in Section 2 of the order. That's the policy saying the feds are going to clear the ground here. And the task force shall consult from time to time with the special advisor for AI and crypto. That's you. So are you going to have to sit down with a bunch of lawyers from Justice every now and then and talk about screwing the states out of screwing the feds?
Well, so this is one of the powers or one of the tools that's created by the EO. And let me just say that the DOJ already has the power to challenge state laws. So this is not a new power. But what the EO is doing here is enumerating and marshaling all the tools of the federal government behind the president's policy to create a national framework. And so, yes, we are going to meet with the DOJ, this task force, to try and figure out, again, what are the most egregious examples of state laws that we should oppose. And we're going to oppose them either on First Amendment grounds or on interstate commerce grounds. These are areas where the states do not have the right to impose these excessive regulations. So that is the purpose of that. But let me just say that there are areas that we will not challenge the states, and this is important too. What we said is that we recognize that the states have an interest in protecting child safety, for example. And furthermore, we realize that localities have an interest in choosing what their local infrastructure is. We're not going to interfere with the rights of communities to decide whether they want to have a data center or not. So there are areas that we're not going to challenge, and those are enumerated in this executive order as well.
Now, you're in Northern California, and I'm in Southern California until I fled a decade ago because it had fallen off the cliff. We can't let California screw this up. Are they trying to screw? They screwed everything up. Literally everything they touch, they screw up. Is California trying to screw up AI?
Yes. I mean, by the way that you and I would define it, they are absolutely screwing this up. They already passed one bill called SB 53, which creates this reporting regime for AI models. And it's burdensome in and of itself, but now multiplied by 50. You're going to have AI companies trying to file reports with different definitions in 50 states to 50 different state regulators with 50 different deadlines. This is going to be an absolute morass, and it's going to be very expensive. Look, the big tech companies can always afford to comply. They're going to figure it out. But it's the little tech, it's the startup founders and entrepreneurs, the innovators, who are going to get tangled up by this. And this is where we start to impede innovation, and it could cost us this AI race with China. So, what we need to do is move to a federal framework, not a patchwork of 50 different states. And it's true that, California is the state that has the most market power, and it has the most nexus to AI companies. So, I know there's a lot of red state governors who are saying that they're opposed to the federal role as well, but they can't stop Gavin Newsom and the local assemblyman Scott Wiener, who's writing all these laws, from foisting these laws on the entire country, because almost all of the major AI companies are in California, and they're going to have to abide by these California laws, and those California laws are therefore going to become de facto for the rest of the country. So, I understand some of the concerns of the red states, but they need to understand that President Trump is the only elected official in America who can protect the red states from what California is going to do. And, it's not just Gavin Newsom, it's the Scott Wiener, for example. They already passed SB 53. Wiener's got 17 more bills ready to go. And again, these are going to become de facto law for all of America because of California's market power if we don't move to some sort of national framework under President Trump's leadership.
You'll need a whack-a-mole lawyer or phalanx of lawyers over at DOJ to spread out over California, and every time they propose a reg or statute, challenge it under the negative commerce clause. Now, Clarence Thomas doesn't like the negative commerce clause, but I think it's clearly there. Is that what the AI litigation subsection is all about? Standing up people to go out there and hit them as soon as they come up with a bad idea?
Well, it does give us the power to do that. But I think in practice, we're going to have to be selective and decide where to pick our battles. And again, what we say in the executive order is we want to go after the most onerous and excessive state regulations. So California is certainly capable of producing those regulations. And if they're unchecked, this is not a stable equilibrium. They've already passed, I think, several AI laws, and there's dozens more waiting to go. So yes, at some point, they're going to do something that we just absolutely cannot accept, but we're going to be selective about picking these battles. We want to make sure that we win these battles in court, and the best arguments are going to be First Amendment arguments and then interstate commerce arguments.
They are clearly the best. When we come back, I'm going to continue my conversation. It'll be on the podcast because preemption is not for the faint of heart. I didn't put too many vegetables on your plate, but I assure you, this is the executive order for which President Trump will be remembered for decades, if in fact it works and we establish for national security purposes an AI advantage which is insurmountable and I think will grow exponentially once we get it going. I hope you enjoyed that intro to artificial intelligence with David Sachs, what President Trump is up to. All of it will be over at my YouTube channel. When you go over there, you might be the person that gives us our 100,000 subscription and earns us the silver plaque and an uptick in the algorithm. So please do that. Subscribe to the Hugh Hewitt YouTube show. While you're also online, don't forget Angel Tree. Their phone number is 888-206-2764. 888-206-2764. Every $30 we receive takes care of one child of the 1.5 million children who have mom and or dad in jail this Christmas. They get a present from Angel Tree. They get a note from their mother or father about the present, connecting with them on Christmas. They get a Bible. They get connected to Angel Tree. You can really change a child's life this Christmas by just making a $30 contribution. You can call it in, like I said, or go to HughHewitt.com. The banner is at the very top. Don't forget as well, Consumer Cellular can save you money this time of the season. When you're spending money, you can save enough money with Consumer Cellular to make twice as much of a contribution over to Angel Tree. Consumer Cellular can be reached at 1-800-411-4454. That's 1-800-411-4454. 1-800-411-4454. Or you can go to consumercellular.com/Hugh. And remember, when you call Consumer Cellular, use my code Hugh, H-U-G-H. And the reason you want to use my code Hugh is no matter what you end up signing for, when you use the promo code Hugh, you'll get your second month of service free when you use that code Hugh. Now, consumercellular.com probably can save everybody money. Only takes 20 minutes to switch. Keep your number, keep all your data, keep it all. But the key thing that's important is if you are over the age of 50 and you want unlimited data, you just want the protection of unlimited data, they have really got a plan for you. 2 lines, if you're over 50, 2 lines of unlimited data for $60 a month. Now, don't get taken in by offers of free phones. They're never free. Don't get taken in by superstars pitching you, this is the latest, greatest thing in the world to do. Just get taken in by $60 a month for unlimited data for 2 lines for 2 people 50 and older. Don't get fooled again. Go to consumercellular.com/Hugh, consumercellular.com/Hugh, and remember, I'm in the Relief Factor studio. Why? Because I'm still inside for 3 days. I did go out for a couple of hits over to Fox, and I ran to the car and I ran back to the car to do that because it was really cold. And it's going to stay cold through tomorrow. It's going to get normal again tomorrow. I'll probably get back to exercising tomorrow. But it won't bother me that I've had 3 days off because Relief Factor works when you're exercising and when you're not. It keeps your anti-inflammatory system strengthened for when you take those periods of time off. It's okay. Some people take a whole week off. All you have to do is remember to try it. Call 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief, 1-800-4-RELIEF, or go to their website and find that starter pack for $19.95. That's less than $1 a day at relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. You will thank me when you try that.